Hey guys, so I have some romance recommendations today, and these are all Kindle Unlimited romances. So last year I read so many romance novels, all because of Kindle Unlimited, really. It was just like the gateway into me discovering this genre, and I found a lot of really good books and then also a lot of really average books and then bad books. So there's a lot out there, and it's kind of overwhelming when you get Kindle Unlimited because there's just so much. But I have chosen here 8 books from 8 different authors that I really love. I would definitely consider these some of my favorite romances that I've read in the past year, and they're all available through Kindle Unlimited. And the great thing too is that all of these authors have other books out and other series out, so if you like their stuff, you can go ahead and check out their other content. So the first one I want to talk about is actually a book that I read 2 years ago. It is an R.S. Gray novel called The Bow and the Bell. So if you know anything about R.S. Gray, you know she has so many books. I feel like she comes out with a book every few months, and they're all romantic comedies. They're all super funny, like laugh out loud while you're reading them kind of funny. And The Bow and the Bell was the first R.S. Gray book that I read. The Bow and the Bell takes place in New Orleans. It's an age gap romance starting with this girl in high school, and then this, I actually forget, it's been so long since I read it, but I believe he is in college at the time. It has 2 different timelines, when she's in high school and then when she's older. It was a really good romance. I just remember laughing a lot while reading it. I liked the setting of New Orleans. There's not a lot of books I've read that take place in New Orleans, so I just really liked that. And this story takes place around Mardi Gras, so that was really cool to read about as well. So overall, I just really enjoyed this. Definitely a good light and fluffy romantic comedy, and if I remember, the steam factor on this was relatively low. For me, I like all of my romances to have like little to no steam, which is hard to find. Most of the books on this list fall into that category. So if you're not into super steamy romances, for the most part, the books I'm going to be recommending to you are going to be okay for you to read. Moving along, I have to mention my favorite romance author of all time is Mariana Zapata. She can do no wrong, in my opinion. Her books are fantastic. I have given all of her books either a 4.5 or a 5-star rating, and she usually only has like one steamy scene, and it's usually not even that like bad. So I really appreciate that in her books. They're really all centered around the romance and the relationship between the 2 couples. So I absolutely love her books. All of her books are also pretty long too. A lot of romances are relatively short, but she does a great job with a slow burn, and she can write a long novel, and I feel like every part of the book I'm here for. So I first want to mention my favorite book by her, and that's The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This book is a marriage of convenience, and it's also a sports romance. The male lead character is a football player, and he's from Canada, and so I think he's from Canada. I'm pretty sure it was Canada, and he's gonna be getting deported, whatever. He needs to get married is the whole plot. So he marries his like assistant, and it's their relationship. The guy is a totally rude character to start. He's very standoffish and keeps to himself. He doesn't have any relationships with anybody. It's just like football is life, and he's just this like heartless seeming man, and things change. It's a really good time. I would highly recommend it. If you also like sports romances, From Lukov with Love was the first Mariana Zapata book that I read, and it's a figure skating romance. And what I really liked about this romance was you really got a lot of in-depth information about the sport of figure skating and how intense that sport can be, and it was really fun to read about. So From Lukov with Love, it's an enemies to lovers romance, and these 2 are paired together who hate each other. They've been rivals. Now they're going to be competing in a pairs competition. So it's a really good time. It's a hate to love, friends to love. It's a really great storyline. I would highly recommend. And also I want to recommend another one by her. I would recommend all of her books, but Wait For It is also really good. It's not a sports romance. It is about a young woman who is the guardian for her 2 nephews because her brother passed away, and so she is kind of becoming a mom, and she loves these kids so much. I love the relationship she has with these kids, and she moves into a new house, and she meets the guy across the street who is really standoffish. Mariana Zapata does a good job with those types of characters, but over time they become neighborly with each other, and it's their relationship. It's so good. It is also very slow burn. The title is aptly named Wait For It because it makes you wait for it, but her books are just fantastic. So I would highly recommend everything by Mariana Zapata because, like I said, she can do no wrong. I have not read a bad book by her yet, and I still have a couple books to read by her, but I I really enjoy those. Next, I'm gonna mention Longshot by Kennedy Ryan. Now, Kennedy Ryan has a lot of books out, so there are tons of different series to get into. I've heard really good things about a lot of them. I haven't gotten into any other series really besides this one, but Longshot is definitely my favorite book that I've read by her. This is another sports romance. Our main character is a basketball player. One thing I really liked about this book, it was dark. It was a heavier romance. It definitely is not a romantic comedy, so get that thought out of your mind completely. This has huge themes of domestic abuse and violence, so if that is triggering to you, please do not open this book at all, or just know that going in, because it's very heavy. I found it was actually really hard to read at times. It was so heavy, but I think she did such a good job with that part of the story. And what I love about this book is it spans a long period of time. This isn't just like a summer, few months or whichever, it's years. So I really liked that. One thing though about this, I think out of my whole list, this is the steamiest book on here, which I didn't expect, because I thought like the themes, the domestic violence and that whole story plot line were gonna be the main thing. So I was really surprised when there was all the steaminess. So keep that in mind if you're going into this. There is some steam, but still the rest of the story I enjoyed enough to put it on the list. Next is a book that it's so cute and so good, and that's Marriage for One by Ella Mays. So this is a marriage of convenience novel. I love like the fake dating, marriage of convenience, all of that kind of trope. This takes place in New York City. I love the New York City setting. One of my favorite places where books are set is either New York City or a small town. Like there is no in between for me. So I love the setting. Our character is a brooding, silent, standoffish man, which that is a theme with most of these books here, but the author does a fantastic job writing his character, and so they have to get married. Our female character is obviously the complete opposite of him. She is bubbly and fun, and she's opening up a bakery, and honestly, if I'm talking about my book buzzwords, bakery and New York City, those are two of them right there. So obviously I was gonna love this book. This is also a longer romance, which I really liked, because like I said before, we don't really get that many romances that are super long. This is a long, slow burn. I love the whole super standoffish characters kind of slowly learning each other and falling for each other. It's so sweet. Definitely would recommend this one, and I really liked it. Next, I want to recommend Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover is a name I'm sure a lot of you know, and I'm so happy that she does have some books available on Kindle Unlimited, because I've read her books before. She wasn't a new to me author, but Regretting You is available. So it's a romance also meeting a family drama about a mother and a daughter, and you're following both of their stories actually, and both of their romances, but they're also going through grief. So it's a very interesting story. It definitely kept me hooked, and I'm really glad that I read it. If you want something that isn't as much heavy on the romance but also has some other topics in it, and it's not a romantic comedy, would recommend this one because it was really good. The next is Wasted Words by Stacey Hart. I've read a few more Stacey Hart novels through Kindle Unlimited, but the first book has definitely been my favorite. This takes place in New York City, another buzzword for me, so I do love this. It's also a friends to love romance, which I love the friends to lover trope. I feel like there's a lot of times I read it and I don't like it, but when it's done well, I really like it, if that makes sense. So this is that. There's two roommates living in New York City. She owns a bookshop that is also a bar, and she hosts these like singles night, and it's really fun. So I definitely would recommend. She has a full series following this one book. She has other series. She has tons of books. So if you like that, you can just go through the rest of her catalog. A series I actually just finished is the Becker Brothers series by Candy Steiner. The first book is On the Rocks. Second book is Neat. Third book Manhattan. And fourth book is Old Fashioned. So as you can tell, those are whiskey type names. It's based in a small town in Tennessee where this whiskey distillery is a part of all these Becker brothers' lives. So it's each of their romances. You do have to read these in order because there is an overarching mystery surrounding this whole series. So you have to read these in order if you are going to read them. So start off with On the Rocks. I really loved On the Rocks. I'll give you the synopsis for that one since it was my favorite and it's the first book in the series, so it works. So we have our second eldest brother, Noah. He's a barrel raiser for the distillery, and Ruby Grace is this polished young lady who's coming back to her hometown from college because she is getting married. She's planning a wedding in 6 weeks, which is unheard of. I think it's 6 weeks, and she's having this wedding in her town. She goes to the distillery to buy a barrel for her husband to be as a wedding gift, and meets Noah, and they have a kind of friendship that starts, and it's so stinking cute. I absolutely loved this book. It really made me think of The Notebook, and so I was listening to The Notebook soundtrack the entire time pretty much I was reading this, and it just really amped up the ambiance for this and made it fantastic. So would recommend doing that if you like The Notebook, if you like Notebook music, if you just want to read on the rocks. It was so good. I really like the series overall, but definitely the first book was by far my favorite. And the final book that I have to recommend to you is The Guy on the Right by Kate Stewart. So this is also the first book in a series, and I'm sure she has other books. I actually haven't looked into it. But The Guy on the Right, it's about the underdogs. It's pointing to not the guy in the middle, the guy who everyone's looking at. It's this kind of sidekick guy that doesn't get his own story. Well, this is his story. So it's following him and this girl that he meets, and they decide to just be friends. So it's a friends lovers thing. They have such great chemistry together and friendship chemistry, and this is another friends to lovers romance that is just done so well. I really enjoyed this book, and I loved their friendship relationship, their real relationship. It was just really fantastic. So that wraps up all of my Kindle Unlimited romance recommendations. Like I said, these are really just a jumping point for so many different books you can read from this point on. All these authors have written a ton of other series and books for the most part. If you have any Kindle Unlimited authors or books for me to recommend, especially in the romance genre, I am always interested, so please leave those below. And thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.